County's Board of Commissioners public hearing and deliberations update with community development. It is August 1st, 2019 at 9 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. And David, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so present are Commissioners Brooks and Duncan, and excused is Chairman Filios. So any conflicts of interest? Okay, none. So we will go right into our public hearing for case number VAC 18-0001. This is McGuire Estates, and this is for a vacation of a partial plat. And Vlad, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. Good morning. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. As you just stated, this is actually a request by you, the board, to vacate a public park within the platted subdivision of McGuire Estates. The subject parcel is located on the west side of Kootenai County, just south of I-90, and it's bordered by three different roads. I believe it's Lundy, Dunbar, and Cannon. And it's sitting, the property is sitting, it's tucked in behind existing residential lots with 10-foot strips that provide physical and legal access to the adjacent public roads within the plat itself. As you can see, this is the area overlay. The area is highlighted. It's the existing park. It's less than an acre in size. It's roughly 0.8 acres in size. And it's fairly flat with minimal vegetation, and it looks like it really has never been used as a park in the past. It's located in the agricultural suburban zone. While the current rules and regulations require that the ag sub-zone have a minimum requirement of 2 acres, because this plat and the park area was created prior to February 8, 2005, it's compliant with the rules and regulations of being less than 2 acres in size. So the original plat was recorded in 1976, and the discrepancy that staff has found doing some of the research is that the original plat contemplated dedicating the park to the public. However, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as we typically refer to the CC&Rs, state that the conveyance would be solely for the benefit of the owners within the plat itself. Well, we never found the legal document that was recorded to convey that solely for the benefit of just the owners within the plat itself. Therefore, it's under the county ownership. It's considered a public park for the benefit of this county. And so the intent of this vacation process, as has been explained by our legal counsel, is to merely vacate the recreational park use so that the park itself, or the parcel itself can be sold off. And Director Callahan and I had a community meeting last summer to discuss the process of vacating the park, and we got an overwhelming support last summer from the neighbors who thought that they would likely purchase it and then conduct a boundary line adjustment to aggregate portions of the property into their existing lots adjacent to the park. However, at this time, we did receive a total of 10 comments, 3 in support, 3 neutral, and 4 opposed with comments. in reading those comments, I believe, and perhaps I misunderstood what the concerns were, but I'd like to maybe sum up and state that folks are concerned about the process. Maybe it's a misunderstanding of why vacation is needed, why can't the property be given away or sold off as is. And from our legal counsel, I believe that the recreational use first has to be vacated before any sale proceedings can move forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the required findings are that that notice be published and posted, which we have done. We are also required to notify all the interested parties, and we notify everybody within the plat farther out than the 300-foot radius would require. And the third finding is that the proceedings must meet state law, state statute 50-1319, in the event there is opposition. You wouldn't just have deliberations to vacate it, you would have to conduct a public hearing as you're doing today to take testimony from the public to see whether or not it's in the best interest of the community to move forward with this process. I stand for any questions that you have.
So, I wonder if we could hear from Pat, the attorney.
What would you like to hear?
What were your findings?
Okay, well, in order to dispose of the property, the county would have, has to go through this plat vacation process and decide to vacate that portion of the plat. Then, under other state law, the county commissioners do have several options by which you could dispose of the property. It could be disposed of through public auction, which is one option community development staff has identified, but it's only one option. Another option, could be conveyance to another public entity. Another option could be conveyance to either the adjacent property owners or potentially all the property owners in the plat as to a fractional and divided interest in the property. I think that would probably be the one that would carry out the intent expressed in the CC&Rs, though not carried out when the plat was actually recorded.
So you do that to the property owners that are adjacent to this vacated property, or does everybody in the whole plat? Because I can see people who live way over there not being particularly interested in the maintenance of that parcel.
Right,
Whereas if
and
it were
that could be something that could be gleaned from public testimony, or it could
Okay.
even be gleaned from a subsequent meeting. Maybe staff has a meeting with the people in the neighborhood to determine.
Because I can see them wanting it taken care of.
Right.
One last note I forgot to mention is that we would, should the board move with the vacation process, we recommend that the deed restriction be placed on it to preclude the issuance of any habitable or non-habitable structures. Therefore, it would not facilitate for an increase in density because of merely insufficient access, lack of infrastructure improvements, or other features that may be necessary.
Just to be clear, if I may, David Callahan, Community Development Director, that would be once we let go of it as a county. However, once it's absorbed incrementally, for instance, by boundary line adjustment to neighbors, it wouldn't matter a whit if they had structures on there that met code, as long as they met setbacks. Our concern is we don't want another home in the middle of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay.
Good,
Right.
thank you. Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a fairly sizable 55-lot subdivision that was recorded back in the 1970s, and so, it's, that is certainly a legitimate concern, whether, the people who are more removed from that immediate block would be interested in ownership and all that entails.
So the reason why we haven't turned it into a park because the final legal thing wasn't?
Well, I think the easy answer is we've never had an active Parks and Recreation Department that does that sort of thing. we don't have active parks in the county like the city does, for instance, where the city
Okay.
has its own Parks and Rec group.
Right.
And they run parks.
We kind of do.
Well,
Yeah,
but
I just
not
gonna-
like this.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna, this would be more of what they call a passive park, where you
Oh,
just have
okay.
green space that the people can do whatever.
Right.
Or even if it was a neighborhood park,
Right.
where we'd have playgrounds and so on. So we don't have an entity that does that sort of thing throughout the county, that runs neighborhood parks in all of these subdivisions. I think the easy way to think of this is this was subdivided at a time when the county could have done that. We could have created that sort of, but we never
Yes.
actually did.
Okay.
Okay.
And there would,
Mhm.
it looks to me, just by looking at it, like the developer had a good intent to make a little park there, because it
And
would,
actually to turn it over to the HOA, it
Well-
never did.
Oh, okay.
but it would, because it would be very easy to extend those lot lines
Mhm.
and eliminate that park.
Mhm. That's actually what I was hoping would happen ultimately through this process.
Okay. All right, well, I think we are ready for public testimony then. And I have, has everybody filled out one of these who wants to speak? Okay. Craig Goodall is opposed and may wish to speak. So, okay.
My name is Craig Goodall. I live at 2110 West Cannon Avenue, Post Falls, Idaho. My parents have lived on that property since the inception back in, I think, 72 or 73. And they still reside there, and I reside with them. I'm their caretaker. The concern is that from that point forward to today, myself, my parents, these people, as well as other peoples around the property, have been taking care of that property since the early 70s at our own expense. Mowing, I have Sensky come out and do weed and feed on the property. So I am having an issue with all of a sudden it becomes the county's when we have always taken care of it. And now if the county decides to vacate, we're gonna have to pay for it. Well, we've expended quite a bit of money from the early 70s forward in taking care of that property that the park department or the county didn't even know existed until there was a complaint filed about a particular neighbor that was keeping a lot of cars back there. That was how this all started. Otherwise, this wouldn't even be happening because we all around the park took care of it.
Now, is your property the one you're, one of those that abuts that?
Yeah, mine
Have them go
is,
back to the zone map.
Huh?
Can we go back to the zone map?
Right there, which one is
The-
yours?
The green one was a really good one.
yeah, the green one was the green map.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so
Okay.
mine is here.
Okay.
Okay, that's all.
No,
I just,
up.
Oh, no,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay.
mine is here.
that's fine, but
Wait, no.
Still.
Wait, Cannon. Cannon's right here.
Where-
Cannon's
where-
right
oh,
here.
okay,
Yes,
all right.
okay.
There you go.
This is me.
Okay.
Okay.
Right there, so you
And
live
this
right
is-
next to the access.
Yeah, and this
Okay.
is the Glenda's, and her husband is also taking care of the park.
Okay.
Okay.
And these are the people that had all the cars in this area
Oh,
right
okay.
here. But this whole park, everybody around here has taken care of it since inception. So I was just really confused as how all of a sudden the county got it.
My understanding is the county's owned it.
Has always.
Always.
Arguably, we've always owned.
We've always owned it since the creation of this area. We, like you said, weren't aware of it, so we are trying to not own it anymore.
Okay, and
So
that's
we-
great. We would
Yes.
like to own it.
Okay.
And why would
This
that, why
is-
do you feel that would cost you money?
Because from what we're understanding is that it's gonna go up for auction.
Well,
You know, we're
that was-
not rich people.
That was
Right.
one of the possibilities, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
not all of the possibilities.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
We had a meeting with Mr. Callahan and Vlad. They came out. We discussed between all of us what we would like to do would be to incorporate what there is into our property and then add that to our property payment.
Sure.
And, you know, just continue as is. But then we received the information about it possibly going to auction, and we're like, well, how much is that gonna be? Because,
Right.
I mean, like I say, we're not wealthy people, we live in a trailer. So, but the thing is that, you know, we have been taking care of that property since the beginning. And I think that the county would feel that you guys have been doing so much, you guys have been taking it care, we'll just donate it to you. I mean, if you sell it or it goes to auction and somebody else buys it, what are they gonna do with it? I mean, we're still backed up to that property, so
Right.
we're gonna be subject to whatever that person that buys it.
And there's no access to it, is there? from
Yes,
the
there
road?
is. There's
The
access
two-
on my side,
Oh, I
right
see.
next to my
Yeah.
Two
property.
yellow lines?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the one over here, the one
On the left?
on the left, yeah, lower left, no, that's
that
mine.
one.
On
Okay.
this one, the house that has that property has actually encroached on the easement right
Oh.
there and has put in part of their driveway on it. So,
Well, that's not something we're gonna help you with.
no, they can keep the driveway there, I don't care. But I just thought that, you know, we've exerted so much effort and everything to keep that nice and to keep it, you know,
Yeah.
bearable for the other neighbors. And I think a good gesture from the county would be saying, okay, you guys subdivide it and it's yours. So that's
Okay.
really all I have.
Thank you.
Very much.
Can I make just a short comment on that? This plat vacation will be the first step in that process.
Okay.
Will we make that decision today too? To how we want to,
Dispose of it.
Dispose.
Not necessarily.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have another question. So what would have necessitate waiting a decision on whether or not you're going to vacate or not, or how you're going to vacate? How much longer is this going to carry on?
That,
I wouldn't expect it to have to carry out too much longer, but I do think it needs to be discussed fully between the members of the board.
But it
okay.
doesn't require a 28-day notice to,
No,
okay,
that's just a regular agenda item.
okay, good.
Okay.
It may be prudent to notify, you know, the property owners at some, you know, at some point in advance of the hearing.
Okay.
There's no specific requirement other than the open meetings law.
Okay, great. Stacy and Chris Hudson opposed, wish to speak?
Commissioners Duncan and Brooks and guests, I had a whole page of things planned to say, but I feel like it's been said. I will note that as Vlad said, part of our opposition to the vacation process came in a misunderstanding of the fact that the vacation was the first part of that process and that there were options that could come later. As Community Development Director Callahan and Vlad said, we met on the property last summer. We all seemed to be pretty agreeable to the fact that if the county were to vacate the property and not put it through to public auction, I think that's the contention that I'll echo what Craig said and our concern as well, that, you know, given the property value that we've seen through the documentation of the Community Development Department, that's not a price that we would be able to pay, nor a process that would be easy for one neighbor to possibly purchase it and then go through the process of subdivision. Having that property change hands in one of these other possible ways would certainly be agreeable to all of us. I do want to know, do you mind jumping to the green one one more time? Thank you. We are, the two that have come here to speak are the ones that are right next to each easement. This little
Oh,
pyramid
okay.
guy right here
Uh-huh.
is our property. And
Okay.
so absolutely in 14 years of living at 344 Dunbar Street, we were initiated into the community by being handed the covenants and being told by our older neighbors, young bucks, this is how it's done. You're gonna mow this property, you're gonna take care of it, everybody takes their turn. And so even though the county found out about this much later, the community was aware of the fact that this was community property. And certain ones of us were voluntarily or told that it was our property to take care of.
So your concern was, though, that the vacation would go right into auction?
correct.
Okay.
And we were concerned with the auction process. But
Okay.
as we all agreed to, the other thing that I do want the commissioners to know is that last summer, after we had this meeting, I and other members of our neighborhood walked around to each one of these parcels that had property that was adjacent. And you can notice that some of them, even though they're in this circle, they don't have any property
Just
that
barely.
would really touch, right? Yeah,
Okay.
so the ones that are touching, that have adjacent property, we, took a checklist and a survey around, spoke with everybody, collected their contact information. We met with a surveyor to talk about the possibility and what that cost would be, so that all of the neighbors who were interested would understand the full scope of what was to happen. And there are some of them that are not interested, that just don't want an extra piece of property. But I agree with everything that's been said. The vacation process, I understand now. I would prefer for it to not go to public auction and to be deeded over to the neighbors who have cared for it for this time. And we've gone a few steps into the process to know which neighbors are interested in doing so, and even a surveyor that was recommended to us by Mr. Callahan.
Perfect, great, thank you. Questions?
No, that was a good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, hearing none, we have a rebuttal time if you have anything else to add, Vlad?
David, you were saying that you had some definite ideas as to how this could be.
I think it helps to step back from this and realize that we, the county, accepted a parcel we never wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's the starting point. That was done by the plat of record in the 70s. And it was bad procedure at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help that, and I can't unchisel it. Part of what's confusing people is we have certain formalities we must go through to get to the end result, like a vacation, under circumstances like an auction.
Right.
We can't just give land away typically, but we do have options. You've heard all that. I think now at this point you have enough of an understanding you can pull the trigger. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I would take a motion to end public testimony and enter into deliberations.
I move that we end public testimony and enter into deliberations.
I'll second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan,
Aye.
and Commissioner Filios is excused.
Okay, so it seems a little cut and dried to me. I think vacation is appropriate, and then to discuss what further happens, you're saying that has to be a separate meeting? Or,
Well, you can discuss it now. But,
okay,
I would recommend that you not make a decision today on that part of
Okay.
it. That's, for one, the formal reason that's not part of the agenda item.
Gotcha.
But the real world reason is I think it needs to be, looked at further, discussed.
Figured out.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I am fine with the vacation. Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would move that we approve the vacation. Tell me, Pat, if this.
Go ahead.
In case number VAC 18-0001, McGuire Estates. How far do you want me to go into that?
That's it?
More?
No, I think that's sufficient.
I could read
Okay.
the paragraph for you.
I second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Filios is excused.
Okay. All right, so that ends our public hearing portion. Now we'll enter our deliberations for the next case. And so if anybody wants to leave, you don't have to stay.
But you're welcome to.
Yes, absolutely welcome to.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so this is case number PUD 19-0001, a request by, is it Archstone or Arkstone LLC? And let's see, this is just deliberation, so back to staff.
Good morning once again, Vlad Finkel, with Kootenai County Community Development. This is case number PUD 19-0001, a request to amend the club at Black Rock Planned Unit Development to increase the originally approved density by 13 units. As many of you know, the Black Rock PUD is located on the west side of Coeur d'Alene Lake, just north of Rockford Bay. It comprises of approximately 679 acres. The PUD boundaries are split zone between rural and restricted residential adjacent to Coeur d'Alene Lake. The property is also split, designated under the comp plan designation with country and shoreline designation along Coeur d'Alene Lake also. As you can see, this is, the area is somewhat developed. I believe there's only about 30% of the entire PUD that's been developed throughout its geographical boundaries. There are some areas with slopes that are rather steep and some are somewhat gradual. And of course, a lot of it is just bare land that hasn't been developed at this time. To understand the reason for the deliberations today, we need to go back to the original date of inception of this PUD. And in 2000, the Board of County Commissioners approved a planned unit development consisting of 381 residential units. Some of them were to be single family, some of them were to be multifamily. On September 10, 2003, the Board of County Commissioners approved an amendment to reduce the overall density from 381 to 375. However, through the course of a number of years, there was clerical error that was made where the county had actually approved a total of 376 units. Based on that, we figured that because of an estoppel issue, we would honor the 376 as being the overall number of units that are permissible at this time. On March 20th of 2012, the most recent update was a minor amendment to the PUD, which did not have to go through the board, but it was done administratively to increase the overall acreage of the PUD from 674 to 679. There was a need to allocate additional land for, I think, the maintenance building on the golf course. So what is the reason for increasing the overall density? Well, the reason is the applicant wishes to construct a total of 16 condo units consisting of, I believe, 4 fourplexes on the property. And currently, they have only 3 available development rights based on the land that they own that's highlighted before you. And what that would do, the increase in the overall density, it would allow them to add 13 additional units within that space and create the condo plat. The condo plat process it's a separate process, it's done administratively, but in order for that to take its course, this needs to come to fruition, and then they need to come back in and apply for a final plan process. There's no plat process for a PUD, but there is a final plan process that the code specifically enumerates, and we'll be working with the applicant on that, but that's a separate matter. These are some of the photos of the property. I have visited the property myself. There is great access. The road to the future area of development has been constructed, it's paved. It does have some slope, but it's very insignificant. It could easily be developed. We did solicit comments from numerous agencies. The most significant comments are in front of you. We received really no objection from the Highway District. Black Rock Utilities can serve the additional density. Panhandle Health District has no objection. DQ is on board. Fire District is on board. Idaho Department of Lands is on board, and Building Division basically requires that they comply with the building code. standards when they build. During the public comment period, we received a total of 6 comments, 1 in support, 5 in opposition. The concerns were with regards to increasing traffic and stormwater runoff. Well, these are the required findings, but going back to the concerns that were raised through the original public comment period, we figured that based on the density that's allowed in the rural and restricted residential zone, the combination of both would allow as many as 812 units. The current approval is less than half of that. By adding 13 additional units, that would still not rise to
What did you say, 379 or?
376 currently.
76, okay.
So the analysis that we made is that the additional density would only be an increase of 3.4% from the overall approved. It's still less than half of what could potentially be developed if you exercise the density standards in the rural and restricted residential zone for the overall geographical boundary of the PUD. Therefore, we feel it's an insignificant issue. The other concern that I wanted to elaborate on is the stormwater runoff. We did have testimony presented at the public hearing that was conducted on July 18th of this year. And folks that live along the lake to the south of the PUD have expressed concerns of stormwater runoff. I don't necessarily believe that the increase in density or the construction of these condos would be a stormwater issue, because our site disturbance chapter requires that any impervious surface has to be treated on site. Any runoff cannot exceed build-out runoff. But we gather that there could be an issue maybe with a golf course being irrigated, and that's more of a golf course maintenance issue rather than the specific request to amend the PUD. And I think David Callahan had elaborated on that originally at the HE level, which is a completely separate matter from what's before us today. Subsequent to the public hearing that was conducted on July 18th, the hearing examiner recommended approval of the PUD amendment to increase the density. I stand for any questions that you have at this time.
Can you go back to the map where it shows the, well, it doesn't really matter which map, I don't think. Okay, so is this all golf course then? Is that what all of that?
That's the open space golf course area.
Okay, all right, so, and you were saying people down here were concerned about the runoff?
Correct.
Okay. But they have to address runoff when they go to build, is that correct?
Yeah, development, yes.
Okay.
Pre and post development runoff cannot leave the site. And we think the stormwater concerns are a valid concern, but we don't believe it would not be further exacerbated by the approval of this PUD amendment to construct these 16 condos.
Okay. And so on the separate matter of golf course runoff, are we looking at that?
We have looked at it. Again,
Okay.
David Callahan, Community Development Director. This is a problem that I don't believe the county can solve. The golf course has an enormous amount of water, as you would expect.
Yeah.
And some of that reaches the people downhill.
Okay.
We don't know, and neither do they, how much of it is actually attributable to the golf course.
Right.
And at this point, there have been changes made to the infiltration ponds downstream to help the people that have concerns. The highway district has stepped in and cleaned out the culverts. I believe everything that could reasonably and practicably be done has been. I believe it's unrelated to these
Right.
additional units, which we will capture on site and detain before it runs off.
Okay.
I wanted to take a look at that slide in your presentation, Vlad, that showed the roads. Show which roads we're using here.
photos?
No, there was a map.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, there was another one that I saw.
That one?
That it was more of an aerial shot of the roads and the lake and, okay, here we go. Now,
So you entered the subdivided, the PUD from,
yeah, we're talking about
Lost.
increased traffic there on 95. Is that the concern?
No.
That was
no, the concern is primarily, I'm sorry, I don't have.
of increased traffic. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
concern.
Okay.
The concern is primarily, is it Lost Bay Road, if I'm not?
Lofts.
There's Rockford Bay Road to the south and then Lost Bay Road right north.
So the adjoining neighbors were concerned about the additional traffic along Lost Bay Road.
Okay.
I believe there are currently two access points on the north side of the plat, and there is an emergency access on the south end. And I do believe that folks that testified lived next to Lost Bay Road.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I have just a short question for Vlad. Also, you know, based on the pictures, it looks like the roads that would serve this have already been constructed.
Just a second. So, to clarify Mr. Braden's question, the access road adjacent to the future development area has been constructed, but the internal parking area and the driveways to each individual condo unit have not. And so
Okay.
that will be completed at some point in the future if this is approved.
Understood. Thank you. Just
So,
for clarification.
show me with our Leslie's pointer or whatever,
Where do-
which, from the condo site, which would be the natural and normal egress onto the roads? How would they go?
Well, if you're asking,
Yeah, if you're living there, how are you gonna get out on a Lost Bay Road?
well, you go around the
Okay,
golf
that's
club.
what I mean.
And then you come out north
Okay.
through the main,
Yeah,
can't see.
I just
where
wanna
the
make
main
sure I was
entrance-
understanding that, because that's 13 units.
13 units.
Additional.
13 additional units. but
And
we'll have
what do
16
you guys
cars.
figure, like in a condo, 2 cars, one and a half cars, or what, what's a reasonable?
10 trips a day.
Huh?
Roughly ADT's 10 average trips a day per residence, that's the general
That's
household.
true.
Okay, I knew there was
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, except for the fact that, I mean, if you're out in a condo, you're not gonna have one mailman go 10 times. So-
B, the county has fewer trips than cities. 10
Right.
trips is a typical city.
City thing.
County.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. That helps, thank you.
Okay. I don't have a problem increasing the density because in their original, it was pretty close to that anyway. That was originally approved, and I'm not sure exactly why we lowered the density in 2003. Understanding the way it's zoned and that they could have double the density, I'd rather just have them have 13 more than more than that. Yeah, I don't see a legal reason why to deny this addition.
I agree.
So, do you want to go ahead and make a motion?
Sure. I would move that we approve the request by Archstone LLC to amend the Black Rock planned unit development to increase the approved dwelling units from 376 to 389. Case number PUD 19-001.
I'll second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Felios is excused.
Okay, good. All right, so we can go on to the signing. So this is, you were not here for this one, and I'm not sure if you got to read the rest of
Yes,
the
I did.
thing. Okay, so if you are comfortable making the motion to authorize signing of the
Yes.
order of decision, then
Yes.
we can just move on to that.
Okay, I would move that we sign the ordinance number 541 case ZON 19-0002, a request by Crystal Creek LLC.
Is that sufficient? Okay,
Yes.
I'll second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan.
Aye.
Commissioner Felix is excused.
All right, now we'll take a couple minutes to enter into the business section of our meeting today. David, was there anything on the hard drive for,
Couple of things, I'm pulling them up now.
okay.
Assuming I can find the hearing here, file folder.
So Pat, just a question. Those people back here, should I have asked them for any comment? I mean, it wasn't a hearing.
No, yeah, deliberations, no public comment is taken, so.
Okay.
Or you want your pen back?
I do.
Thank you, Leslie.
Here you go, one more.
Okay. And as usual, you guys did a nice job.
Thank you.
And there's your pen.
Okay, so I can't open it because it says it's already open, so we'll just go ahead. Are you ready to? Are you ready, Sam?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Sorry.
So we'll move on to our business item on the agenda, and item A, a request by Bill and Donna Sewer?
Sewer is as close as any.
Sewer, okay, to administratively separate 2 acre lots.
Bear with me, this one has a long history.
Okay?
And most of it predates me. The reason I'm bringing it here to you is the Sewers have a memory, some 3 years old, they say, of me meeting with them and me telling them that it was perfectly fine, they say, to divide these 2 parcels. I don't know how I lost my mouse, but thank you. To divide these 2 parcels into 5 acres each. And they have done that, we believe, inappropriately.
Okay.
But, and I'll circle back and give you the history of this in
So
a
did
moment.
they come into community development and get that done?
No.
No. Okay.
So stay with me a moment. Again, they think I said this was okay. I have no memory of it. I have no memory, excuse me, I have nothing in the files, nothing to track it. We've looked through our records of these kinds of meetings. We can't find that we brought it forward. All of that aside, I don't think it's a significant issue to let this go into 2 5-acre parcels because before 2004, it was 2 parcels. That much is unambiguous and undeniable and undisputed.
Okay.
What's weird about this, Vlad, would you get me out of here so I can go back to another, just cancel or get out of the PowerPoint? Since I don't have a mouse, I can't drive it. What's weird about this and where I didn't feel comfortable just saying they could do this is that I want to get out of here altogether. If you look at the history of this, dating back to, oh, great. Well, maybe this will do it. This letter is a good starting point. It says that they don't, the past owners don't deny that this was 2 parcels in the past, but they don't agree to it necessarily being 2 parcels in the future. Set that aside.
Okay.
I think the real issue here is that it was 2 parcels in the past. It has been combined since at least 2004. And Pat's written an opinion to other attorneys saying as much. For all of this time, we've assumed it's 1 20-acre parcel. The only proper way to do a division is a minor subdivision. The Sowers have heard that from my staff, Mel Palmer, as much as 3 years ago. I had it documented on the screen that won't open up now. but I'm asking you to trust me that it's in our tracket records and it says that. And so I had told the sewers just recently that I think you ought to do a minor subdivision. They came unglued, cried, and said, literally, Callahan, you told us this would be okay. I have no memory of that. It's not a hill I want to die on.
Sure.
If you're agreeable to it, I'd like to just let this one go
Okay.
and let them have 2 lots. We would basically be doing that under the understanding that it was that way at one time.
Right.
There's no useful benefit of dragging them through roughly a $12,000 to $15,000 subdivision process, when, in this case, the highway district doesn't get anything out of it, to my knowledge, and neither does anyone else. It would be as if these had been 2 5-acre or 10-acre parcels all this time.
Okay, so do they have separate AINs?
They do at the moment,
I have a question to ask real quick.
because it's been improperly divided.
Okay.
Pat, I
Yes.
am close personal friends with Dick and Wendy Strohmeyer, who's the doctor that was the
Right.
chief of medical staff. Does it make any difference? I don't see any conflict.
As long as you're, as long as you feel you're still able to make a fair,
Okay,
impartial, and
sure.
unbiased decision. then-
Absolutely.
So somebody has it open.
But it is good that you disclose that,
Yeah.
right?
Huh? Somebody, I don't have it open, I can't open it,
Pat,
I
do
got
you
the
have
same. Do you have that
Which-
file open?
Which file?
The little envelope?
Oh,
Yeah, it's just an email.
It ain't working.
That I had sent to them. It has Pat's original write-up. in it.
Okay, go ahead now, I've closed down.
Thank you. Come on.
There it goes.
Yay.
Ta-da.
I think it's
Coming,
behind.
coming.
Behind, huh? There it is.
There.
Usually I copy it to a file.
There it is.
Okay.
There we go.
And open it.
So just so you know, I won't waste your time, but this is a site plan that they actually signed, they, the sewers, when they made a building application with us. It said this is a 20-acre parcel. So you can, and I won't waste your time, but there's more evidence in here that really argues it should be a 20-acre parcel. Again, it's not a hill I want to die on.
And just also for the commissioner's information, we have proposed a process that would fix things like
Like
this
this.
in the
And
Omnibus
Omnibus.
3 amendments, which the planning commission
Just passed.
submitted for your, with the recommendation of approval, so.
So this letter that Pat wrote some time ago, looks like, you can see there, 2010. Really,
Actually, I think it was 2019, I think, oh no, it
oh,
was
so this is the one that Doug,
2010,
yeah,
okay.
there you go. Opining that the lots were combined. But again, that's a judgment call made at a certain point in time, based on the evidence in time. One can make the argument that the sellers never cared to combine these, never meant to, and the buyers certainly didn't mean to.
Yeah, that's my opinion too. It's likely a scrivener's error on the part of whoever wrote the legal description, but still, I mean, we can't assume that when we look at words, words in a deed if they're clear and unambiguous, and so that was the basis for my letter. And I still stand by that legal analysis, but I also
Makes sense.
agree that in this case, it may, for administrative economy and, recognition of property rights and, and that kind of thing, that it might, and the fact that we'll have a process for, a formal process for doing this in the near future, most likely, then, I don't have any problem with David's recommendation either.
And I mostly want, for the record, everyone to know that I don't feel comfortable playing fast and loose with the regs. I like this to be an open, above-board, transparent discussion where if you agree that we can let this go, there'll be a record of it as to why. And then in the future, anyone that comes to this same sort of issue, we have a clear, unambiguous record.
So memorialize it now and move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't see any benefit to having them go through the process either, if at one point it was separate. So I guess just a motion stating that community development can recognize this, or how do
That's
you?
fine.
Recognize this as two
Two
10-acre
separate,
parcels.
right.
Okay, I'd make a motion that we recognize, in accordance with the request of Deliberations Sewer, to separate the two 10-acre lots. Is that?
Parcels.
Parcels.
They're unplatted, so.
Unplanted,
Parcels.
so they're parcels.
Okay, I'll second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan.
Aye.
Commissioner Theodos is excused.
All right, item B, a request by the Pleasant View Neighborhood Association to impose a moratorium on subdivisions within their membership area. Yeah.
You may recall, we had this discussion some time ago, but back then, Pleasant View just asked for moratorium on all minor subdivisions to be countywide. I have since met with them, we've dialogued at one of their meetings, and I explained to them that I could support a narrowing of this as long as it's just their neighborhood. And so that's what they've come back with. Their neighborhood is large. If we get out of here and go to a map that we've jennied up, if you will, this is a rough approximation of that description you saw on, that I just had on the screen. It's roughly the size of Post Falls in area. So what I wanted to do is just get this in front of you as a concept, see if you're remotely interested in the moratorium on minor subdivisions in an area like this that we would further refine with the neighborhood and with our own staff to cull it down as rationally as possible. And if you're willing to go there, the only reason I listed this as an action item is that we would then work with Pat, set up the usual procedural process where we'd have a notice, I assume it's 28 days or more, and we'd call it out legally, as you know, describe the area. We'd set the parameters for the moratorium. It would all be a public hearing. Anyone could show up and say anything.
So, two questions.
Sure.
How many lots can still be subdivided, and do you have any that are thinking about it right now?
I don't know and no.
Okay.
I can find out.
Wasn't there one that was withdrawn though?
Thank you. That's good history. Part of what brought all this to light is Vlad had Ben processed a case that I approved, minor subdivision, that this neighborhood came unglued over and appealed my decision. Amazingly, the applicant withdrew his subdivision. That's an automatic loss of $12,000 because of all, the
Right.
surveying work and whatnot. But this particular man has an enormous amount of integrity. I'm only bringing this up because to me this is a rare thing where he decided he didn't want to anger his neighbors. That is huge. But it also tells me that the neighborhood takes this very seriously. I was out there, I met them all, I was 30 of them in a neighborhood meeting. And they are very concerned that any new minor subdivisions, and especially the cumulative effect of it, can affect all their wells. They are so concerned that they put together a study group that would include IDL, my office, IDWR, and others to work on this to see how we can drill down on the science of water quantity out here. I'm not entirely sure, but that's why we've come together as a group to see how, explore this and see what to do. In the meantime, they're concerned that they're going to lose their water sources if we don't do something. So they just ask for moratorium. Moratoriums are allowed by state law. You have to have a rational basis. We can help with that if you decide you want to go there. It really is the case here that I'm just passing on the neighborhood's concerns, and it's your call as to whether you want to do a moratorium or not.
What is your recommendation?
I don't, I think a moratorium couldn't hurt for 6 months while we get a handle on an item of how much of a real problem is this? Is it countywide? And should we set up some sort of prototype if it is countywide?
A process.
Thank you. Yeah, to deal with it countywide. Because there's lots of areas outside the Rathdrum Prairie, like this one, where we don't know the long-term quantities of water.
Right.
And, that is just, to opine on the legal aspects of this, this is an option that you may consider. The initial moratorium would be for no longer than 182 days, which is basically about half a year. I would also recommend that it be done through a public hearing process, and then if the board were to favor a moratorium, that would be memorialized for a resolution.
Now, could there be language to say this is for 6 months unless the science came back that yes, it can hold, this area can have more
Yeah, you
wells?
can always lift the moratorium at any time.
Oh, okay.
First of all.
It would just be no longer than.
Right.
Oh, okay,
And you have to have a rational basis to continue it for another
right.
Yeah.
180 days. Is that right?
Yeah, basically that, there's an imminent peril of public health, safety, or welfare,
Okay.
which, lack of water, I think, would fall within one or more of those categories.
So if, let's just say one of those larger pieces cannot get water, there's just, they could drill 5 wells 1,000 feet deep, cannot get water.
Right.
Does that make it unbuildable?
No, they could truck it in.
Okay.
Depends on how much you want to throw at it.
Yeah, how much money you want to throw at it.
Sure. Build your own little
You
mini
do a
water
well, you
tower.
do a cistern,
Okay,
for instance. Or,
sure,
yeah, there's options, but they all cost money.
right. I'm willing to go down the road in this little
Discrete area.
discrete area just to see public reaction and to find out, is there tolerance for
And
this?
through the public hearing, you will hear that.
Correct. In general, I would say the one person who withdrew, that should be grandfathered in if he comes back and says, I've figured out a way, I've changed my mind, I've gotten approval, I don't think that the moratorium should affect him,
Sure.
especially if we're gonna honor integrity and that
Right.
kind of thing. I'm just trying to think, who else would be, except for people who actually own parcels that can be subdivided, who else would be negatively affected by a moratorium?
It's really just property owners in this discrete area. And
Okay.
most of them seem to belong to this association.
Okay,
I don't think 180 days is going to hurt anybody.
Well, certainly you'll hear all about it in
Right.
any public hearing we have, if that's the case.
They'll have
Sure.
the opportunity.
Right,
right.
right.
So I don't know how to make that motion.
Well,
Accepting that one person out in,
Oh,
well,
We would just, I think the motion would be to move this to public hearing, move this matter to public hearing.
and actually at the public hearing, we could deal with the one person.
Right,
Yeah.
I can think of ways that I could write that,
okay,
applications.
Because I agree with
Applications that were.
with David and Leslie, that he should be, singled out here because,
Right.
but at the same time, it's kind of unusual.
Yeah, but this is an unusual case. I don't know if we've ever done a moratorium
right.
in the county.
Not since I've been, working here, and I don't even recall one, hearing about one in the newspaper, the time, growing up here, so.
Right.
I think we're finally hitting the threshold where people are up to
Well,
here.
people are talking about, I want a county-wide moratorium.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can't,
And
the
we're
county's
going,
too
"Yeah,
diverse.
I don't think so.
Yeah, water quantity is becoming more of an issue in certain
Mhm.
areas where it never had been before, so.
Exactly. So,
Right. So I guess the motion would just be to move it to public
To what?
To move it to public
Okay.
hearing.
I move that we move the request by the Pleasant View Neighborhood Association to impose a moratorium on subdivision with their membership area to a public hearing. Is that okay, Pat?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Chair Pro Tem Duncan.
Aye.
And Commissioner Felix is excused.
Okay. So next, item C, elimination of the deferred submittal option for mechanical permits.
This is a situation where being nice has bit us. We have, in the past, allowed builders and others to not give us the full application for a building permit, the mechanical, with the idea that they could circle back around and give it to us, and then we catch up, and it all works itself out. What has habitually happened is we get halfway into the middle of it, everything comes undone, they're out in the field building and they've got something up that you can't actually retroactively change for the mechanical to fit, or 10 other things like that. So John had asked me if we could just quit doing this, and I said, yeah, I'm fine with it. I just wanted you to be aware of it as an informational item, because there will be some builders, interesting little squawk, even though in the long run, I think this works to everyone's benefit. Because when we get things up front, we review it, we get it done, then we know, they know, and it's out of the way. John, did I miss anything?
John, is this, are there specific builders who do this and end up creating problems, or is it kind of evenly distributed? Without naming.
Yeah, John Mills, Chief Building Official. I would say no, it's not necessarily one group of builders that has created the issue.
Okay.
It's all across the board.
And do you think there's going to be a big outcry if we do this?
Not a big one, but there'll be some.
There will be some, primarily because habitually they decide at the last minute who's going to be doing their mechanical work. And they normally want to delay that where they're already in construction, then they decide who their builder is. I think the big thing, they're gonna have to make that decision ahead of time.
At the time of building permit
At the-
application.
At the time of application, instead of when they're out there digging.
Two questions. How long have we had this deferral process?
3 years?
Maybe
4
a little
years.
bit more. It started before I became the building official. Its initial reason was that the state requirements put in the additional review of the heating and air conditioning systems. As things were changing, people weren't prepared for that, so we allowed that. That has kept on until we have gotten so busy, the additional time it takes to do it separately has created more problems. Plus, especially the concrete contractors, when they call in for their stem wall inspection, they've got all their panels all set up, they're already scheduled to go to the next job. They can't get their inspection because the HVAC has not been submitted.
Okay,
So that ties up their forms.
okay.
And
So this
Part of the
would
reason.
help correct that?
yes,
Okay. Well, as long as you're willing to give and take, and I'm fine with saying no, it all has to come forward. And then if there's too much heartache, then we'll revisit it, but,
Sure.
yeah.
I think in the long run, everyone should be happier. One of the things I've got to drill through that is tied to this is somewhere between 40 and 60% of every application we get for a building permit is incomplete. I cannot get my mind around that.
Is it that complex, or people just
No.
that sloppy?
I don't know.
Come on.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm going to have to sit across from them and say, why is this so?
Why did you leave that blank, or whatever?
Because over and over and over again, the same people do the same thing.
Well, if it's the same people, then that definitely has to be addressed.
They need a remedial class in how to fill out
Even though we have said, you're not gaining anything, you're not getting your foot in the door, all this does is slow things down, it still happens.
Is it because they tell their client then, I got the building permit?
A, and B, it's now the county's fault that everything is taking so long.
Oh,
It sounds like an excuse.
right.
But that's where I just want to sit across from like this and say, is that really the way you want to do business?
Right.
Well, given the way you handle situations like that, I think that's good. I know that's not easy.
But it goes hand in glove with this issue where
I do.
people just assume.
Well, I appreciate you telling me about it. I'm okay with it.
Nope.
If I may add just a little bit, John Mills again, on the subject that David just was mentioning. In the past, we have had a class, how to get a building permit, where we actually, there for 5 or 6 hours, giving a class of the people that it was important to be there. Very few of them showed up. Homeowners, yes, they did. Short period of time, it improved, but then it went right back downhill.
Because they only do one time.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a one-time deal for homeowners.
Then, different subject, going back to the not accepting deferred submittals, just for your comfort level. This is not something that, okay, you've said you're fine with it. It's not something that next week we're gonna say,
Right.
no, we're not. This is gonna be a notification process, and given the date today, I'm looking at the first week or 2 of September to have the line
Okay,
in place.
If that way, we get lots of notice out there.
right. Okay. Fair enough, all right. Letter or item D, consideration of adding a new plan review position to the building inspection division.
And I'm not actually asking you to make the decision today, I just wanted to have a conversation. And then the authorization would be if you're comfortable with bringing HR in and we've done the homework and tell you all the details then. But the discussion I'd like to have today is that we're back at about 4 weeks for building plan review. That always worries me because that's about 2 weeks longer than I feel comfortable. And I can't, at the moment, make it happen any faster because.
Have you lost somebody?
No, we got several things going on. First, we're at an all-time high. Second, the concept we put in place years ago still hasn't played out because the concept was that plan review / building inspectors would do both. You know, we've changed the job description. That's never actually worked because the building inspectors are always doing building inspections.
Right.
Right now today, they have 53 inspections to do.
Wow.
Some of them are driving 150 to 200 miles in one day to get to them all.
Wow.
And we have 2 new inspectors, you'll recall, that are still, there's a learning curve to these things.
Yeah.
And so the building inspections are eating up most of the staff time. John knows better than anyone that I would really like to have plan review expedited and in-house. I'd like to be able to get rid of our outside review. We're still not there. And we're at a point where we're at 4 weeks. People will start to complain to you if they haven't already, that this is taking too long.
Well, right now, 4 weeks kills your project because by the time it gets where it needs to be, now you're getting into October, November, and that's what happened to us way before your time. But yeah, he started pouring cement in November because of that process.
Right.
So
that's why I'm here.
okay. Now, there was a position that was approved. Was that the same type of position, but on the other side?
That was planning.
Planning. Okay.
This would be building inspection.
And when would this person start?
Well, it usually takes a month to advertise and start taking resumes.
Well, we got a couple of things. As a new position, as a pure plans examiner position, we
that
have to
too.
get
Right,
HR
job
involved
description.
to
Right.
write a new job description.
Just for that.
And
Shouldn't take that
then
long.
decide where in the PACE system it fits to get that part taken care of, to get a qualified person to come in who knows?
Right.
It
Sounds like a
could
couple-
be a couple
2, 3
weeks, it could be several months
2,
to
3 month
to
process.
find somebody in. Plans examiners don't grow on trees.
Right.
Especially in this part of the country.
But you use an outside source right now.
Well, Bob Ankersmith, who used to
Okay.
be chief building official.
Right. So
Yeah.
would that lessen the need for outside help with this new
We are
bylaw?
using him right now.
Right. But if you hire this
Yeah, oh,
in-house
yes,
person,
yes, yes.
will you need outside help?
My hope is that at some point soon, we don't need Bob anymore.
Okay.
It just irritates me that we have to go outside of our department. Seems like we ought to be able to do everything in-house.
So once again, I don't like mid-season stuff, and since we kind of passed the budget
I
window.
understand. I get that. That's why this is a dialogue.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
would agree with Leslie, I don't like mid-season stuff, but I think our ultimate obligation is to the people of Kootenai County who are trying to get things done.
And there is a ebb and flow to these things. Building
Mhm.
inspection is a lot like the marketplace.
Right.
You kind of have to respond to the market when the market is there.
Right. So if you're willing to respond when the market isn't there is kind of the question.
Oh, that too, yeah, and yes.
Okay. I guess just the first would be to contact HR to do that job description,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
I guess we can go down. I'm not saying that I would, okay it, but I'm saying that if you start down that. Path.
Start the process, and
Yeah.
let's see where it leads.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that bugs me about government. You're telling me I have to have this, I have to do this, yet you're not providing the service that I can get that done in a
Mhm.
timely manner, so,
It's not fair.
yeah. All right.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, then this meeting's adjourned. It's 10:12.